Hey everyone, if you're an educator and you're hitting that point in the semester where your energy is just tanking, but that pile of grading is getting higher and higher, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to talk about how to pivot out of that mid semester slump and actually turn it into a genuine breakthrough for you and for your students. So, does this feel familiar? It's that classic inflection point, usually somewhere around week 5, where the grading fatigue is absolutely real, and you get that sinking feeling that some of your students are just quietly slipping away. This isn't just you. It's a real thing, a well-documented pattern in almost every academic term. So, the big question is, do we just have to, power through this every single time? Well, the good news is the research says no. The mid-semester slump is not a foregone conclusion. In fact, it's a huge opportunity for a strategic pivot, a little course correction that can totally re-energize you and your students for the rest of the term. But before we can pivot our classroom, we gotta check our own compass first. So this first section is all about diagnosing instructor burnout. Because let's be honest, our own well-being is the foundation for absolutely everything that follows. What's so important here is how this reframes the whole problem. Burnout isn't some kind of personal failing. Far from it. Research actually shows it's a really predictable process that, ironically, often begins with the very passion and commitment that makes us great educators in the first place. That desire to do more, well, that's often the tipping point that begins the cycle. The Lightman Burnout Scale gives us a really clear way to understand this process. It all starts at level 1, where you're still passionate, but you're just taking on way too much. Then it moves to level 2, where that cynicism starts creeping in. By level 3, that cynicism really starts to harden, and level 4, well, that's just pure survival mode. Let's dig into the specific signs for each level, okay? At level 1, you might just feel like, I'm not good enough. By level 2, you're irritable, you're stressed out. Level 3 brings this feeling of isolation, and by level 4, you're seeing actual physical symptoms. Just recognizing where you might be on the scale, that's the crucial first step toward taking action. So, once we've kind of pinpointed the problem, the solution is not to just work harder, no way. It's to pause. This whole section is about making that critical mindset shift toward intentional self-reflection. And this is the whole game right here. Pushing through on autopilot is what gets us into burnout in the first place. The most effective and happiest educators make time to actually think about what they do, why they do it, and what they might do differently. It's all about being proactive, not just constantly reacting to things.
Now, a really powerful way to think about this is the action research cycle. It sounds fancy, but it's a super simple 4-step process. First, you just observe what's happening. Then you plan one small change, just one. Then you act on it. And finally, you reflect on what happened. It's this little loop that helps you make meaningful improvements to your teaching over time.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem and we've adopted a reflective mindset. Now it's time for the pivot itself. This next section is your toolkit, a bunch of low effort but super high impact strategies you can start using right away. And here it is. This is the big one. Your single most powerful, most efficient, and most effective tool is sitting right there in front of you, your students. Seriously, just asking for their feedback is the absolute best way to get targeted, specific info about what's helping and what's hindering their learning. An incredibly easy way to structure this is the stop, start, continue model. It's just a quick, anonymous survey asking 3 direct questions. What's not working? Stop. What new ideas could we try? Start. And what's already working really well? Continue. It's actionable, it's clear, and it's so easy for students to answer honestly.
But listen, collecting the feedback is only step 1. The really crucial part is closing the loop. You have to report back to your students, summarize the big themes you saw, tell them what you're going to change, and, this is key, explain why you won't be changing other things. This simple act builds an incredible amount of trust and shows them their voices really do matter.
All right, another area that is just ripe for a high-impact pivot is your course policies. I know, it sounds boring, but these small, structural things can have a massive effect on student anxiety and well-being. Whoa, take a look at this number. According to one study, nearly 78% of all assignments were due at 11:59 p.m. Think about that. This default setting, this thing we barely even think about, has real consequences for student sleep, their health, and whether they can even show up focused the next day. So this really shows the clear choice we have. On one side, you have these punitive policies like deducting points every day, which just creates anxiety. On the other, you have supportive policies, things like dual deadlines, an ideal due date with an automatic grace period, or OOPS tokens that give students a free pass. These empower students to manage their own lives without sacrificing any of the rigor.
So, what's the big payoff for all this? Well, by making these small pivots in feedback and in policy, we're doing so much more than just surviving the semester. We are actively building a more resilient, more supportive learning community.
See, these strategies literally transform the classroom into what we call a trauma-informed space. They're built on these core ideas of trust, transparency, and giving students a sense of agency. You're creating an environment where students feel safe enough to learn, to make mistakes, and to actually grow. And this all leads to what researchers call the warm demander approach. And it's pretty much the perfect balance. You maintain really high academic expectations. You demand excellence because you believe your students can do it. But you pair that with genuine warmth and all the support they need to meet those high standards. And honestly, the results really do speak for themselves. Making these kinds of pivots helps with your own burnout, it improves student persistence, it builds trust and engagement, and it gives everyone, you and your students, a renewed sense of control over the whole learning experience. It's a win-win.
I love this quote from John Dewey because it just perfectly captures the spirit of the mid-semester pivot. The experience of teaching is powerful, for sure, but the real growth for both us and for our students comes from taking that time to pause and actually reflect on the experience. So I'll leave you with this one question. You don't need to go and overhaul your entire course tomorrow. Based on everything we've talked about, what's just one small, intentional pivot you can make this week to re-energize your classroom and yourself? Thanks for tuning in.